Television highlights of the news of yesteryear. Defeat is in the distance as Democrat delegates arrive in San Francisco for the 1920 convention that will select a presidential candidate to oppose Republicans Warren G. Harding. Although visitors succeed in turning Frisco into a true convention city, nationwide interest was apathetic. Despite the presence of William Jennings Bryan and other political figureheads, despite the importance of the post-World War I presidency, Democratic leaders such as Senator Atlee Pomerene foresee a dull election, even before a candidate is chosen. Secretary of the Navy Josephus Daniels arrives, appropriately enough, by launch, met by temporary chairman Homer S. Cummings. On right is Virginia's Carter Glass, a power in the party. Official opening of the conclave is in the offing as Women's National League members, including Mrs. Bass and Mrs. Fairbanks of Chicago and Mrs. Jacobs of Alabama, join Wilson's pre-war ambassador to Germany, James W. Girard, in the convention city. And then, June 27, 1920, Convention Hall throws open its doors to receive delegates from all over the United States and its possessions. Democrats hope to remain in power by finding an acceptable successor to Thomas Woodrow Wilson. And initial session sees intense inter-party campaigning, which after 44 ballot deadlocks results in the ultimate selection of Governor of Ohio, James M. Cox. Cox early identified himself with Wilson's ideals and platforms and had as vice presidential running mate Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Despite enthusiasm of the convening delegates, the public in November was to vote neither for Cox nor Harding, but rather against one or the other. At the close of the convention, July 6th, San Francisco returns to normalcy, and James M. Cox to the governor's mansion in Ohio, there to remain as the Republicans moved into the White House. Cleveland, Ohio, in 1938, sees showman Billy Rose stage America's first water ballet. Stars of the show, Eleanor, Holm, Jarrett, and Johnny Weissmuller, started off. Mrs. Jarrett, later to become Mrs. Billy Rose, is the former backstroke champion. Weissmuller, the freestyle record holder. And then the beginning of the ballet, 100 swimmers in precision performance. The Cleveland show ran over 1,500 performances, and the following year, with little change, was moved to the World's Fair in New York. Here on Lake Erie, Cleveland thrills to the spectacular marine fiesta. Another high spot of the water show, spotter dive winding up in a 2.5. Sam Howard in a full layout before completing the 2.5. Billy Rose's diving finale. May 1941 and England's urgent need for destroyer escorts results in the pact with the United States that changed our status from neutral to non-belligerent. Nazi bombers had razed the British Navy. Convoys were in jeopardy, and as bombing continued, England asked for our obsolete destroyers. These World War I destroyers went to England in exchange for a 99-year lease, rent-free, on British naval and air base sites. It was Winston Churchill who announced need of these ships. Turning them over was our first practical indication to Hitler that the sympathies of America were against his policies of aggression. Use of the warships and weapons you see in these films helped England maintain sea supremacy, helped win World War II. Finland's master of music, Jan Sibelius,
Famous the world over, he captured his homeland in the composition Finlandia, which together with his Karelia, Waltz Triste, and hundreds of other works, established him indelibly high in the ranks of composers of the classics.
Lady Lovely of the silent screen. Recognize her? It's Vilma Banky, Budapest-born actress who starred with Valentino in 1926 in Son of the Sheik and in Night of Love and other films with Ronald Colman. Bon voyage to the beautiful Banky. Yesterday's newsreel goes to Geneva in the early 1920s to record the visit to the League of Nations headquarters by the prolific, perennially perverse George Bernard Shaw. In 1933, the dramatist responsible for plays like Man and Superman in 1903, Major Barbara in 1905, and Pygmalion in 1913, is about to leave the United States after his first visit here. Shaw has shielded himself from reporters, but he does make an opening for us. Prelude to independence for the island. It's 1935, and the China Clippers' Captain Nugent bears message from President Roosevelt to the Philippines President Manuel Quezon. Since 1930, island leaders have campaigned for independence, and in 1934, a bill had been passed granting it as of 1946. In 1935, General MacArthur headed Philippine Defense Forces, and the general returns to the Philippines July 4th, 1946, to attend ceremonies marking the beginning of independence. Manuel Rojas is to be new Philippine president, and his pledge of loyalty to the United States of America is followed by an address from MacArthur. Our promise to the islands was the abandonment of military bases and aid in setting up a government autonomous in every respect except for minor reservations. It was Rojas who made the plea for independence back in 1930, and here he takes oath of office as chief executive of America's adopted child, raised under watchful eye and granted independence when it had reached manhood.
Worst gale in 12 years hits New York City. Downtown Gotham, January 25th, 1928, sees 120-mile-an-hour winds wash towering waves against the harbor. 42 are injured by a falling debris as the gale continues throughout the day, punishing pedestrians relentlessly. The freak storm, rising to fury without warning, whips everything in its path. Effort is made to maintain transportation, but the churning waters of New York Harbor place ferry passengers in jeopardy. This ship completed its run, but steadily mounting winds forced cancellation of subsequent trips. New York, seen from Governor's Island at the height of the gale as nature hurls havoc at the greater city.
This is aviation history. You are watching Glen Curtiss in his pusher biplane in 1909. The scene is Rouen, France, and Curtiss is competing in the Gordon Bennett Cup races. Another of the earliest of airplanes. This is the 1910 Blériot Dragonfly, about to try for a speed record. Look at the plane and compare it with today's monarchs of the sky. But in 1910, flyers were only beginning to realize the potentialities of the gigantic industry. Tremendous acclaim greeted announcement after the trial you're watching that the Blériot did a mile in 53 seconds. Years after a thrilling exhibition. 2 years later, in 1912, Frank Coffin, first pilot to fly under the Manhattan and Brooklyn bridges, establishes another first. On this flight, there is an aerial camera aboard. Photographs are to be taken for the first time from an airplane. Just to warm up, the pilot guides his ship under the Brooklyn Bridge and then heads towards Bedloe's Island to inaugurate the trailblazing technique of motion picture photography from a plane. The shots of the Statue of Liberty you are watching are the actual ones taken by Frank Coffin on his historic flight.
It's the middle of a fashion show in the middle 20s at the Municipal Opera Stadium in St. Louis. So let's go back. Here are carefully selected outfits a la mode. Remember when this was the height of fashion? Hello, what's this? Dance introduction to 2 new models, which pleased the men then.
Start of the 1916 Vanderbilt Cup race in Santa Monica, California, and there they go. A new world speed record is being set by one of the greatest drivers in the country. It's going to be Dtuio Nesta who wins with an average speed of 86.98 miles per hour. The new champion went on to beat Ralph De Palma in Chicago. And here he is in the van for the Vanderbilt Cup, a 2-time winner of the trophy, Dtuio Nesta. And it's now 1927 in Forest Hills, and 21-year-old Helen Wills meets England's 16-year-old Betty Nuthall. There's a championship at stake as little Miss Pokerface slams into a service, and the game is on. The match you're watching is the first meeting between the Mrs. Nuthall and Wills, destined to become arch rivals on the court. That's Betty you're watching, trying to put the ball past Helen, who backhands, then is ready for a forehand smash. Finish of the match in straight sets. Helen wins 6-1, 6-4. Helen Wills, ruler of the rackets, queen of the courts.